Hi, everyone. I'm Diane Macedo. Thanks for streaming with us. President Biden is on his way to New York now, where he will meet with New York City Mayor Eric Adams to outline his plan to tackle gun violence. We expect to hear from the president later, and we will bring that to you live. This as Biden says U.S. Special Operations Forces have killed the leader of ISIS in a counterterrorism mission, saying the operation took a major terrorist theater off the battlefield. The president says this sends a strong message to terrorists around the world that we will come after you and find you. The Pentagon says there were no American casualties, but the president says the target detonated a bomb, killing some members of his own family. We have the latest from Washington. Meanwhile, we're hearing from the Kremlin after President Biden ordered 3,000 U.S. troops to Eastern Europe as Russia masses forces around Ukraine. Russia is accusing the U.S. of fueling military tensions, insisting it has no plans to attack. But new satellite images show Russian forces growing north of Ukraine, part of more than 100,000 troops now positioned around Ukraine's borders. The FBI has launched a hate crime investigation into bomb threats this week against more than a dozen historically black colleges and universities. More than 20 field offices across the country will look into the threats that forced class cancellations and sent a wave of fear through campuses. No explosive devices were found. And former Senator Bob Dole was laid to rest with military honors at Arlington National Cemetery. The decorated World War II veteran and former presidential candidate served in Congress for 36 years. He died in December at the age of 98. President Biden addressed the nation this morning, speaking about the U.S. Special Operations raid that killed the leader of ISIS in Syria. He says during the mission, the target detonated an explosive, killing himself and members of his own family, but that the U.S. did everything possible to limit civilian casualties.
Thanks to the bravery of our troops, this horrible terrorist leader is no more. Our forces carried out the operation with their signature preparation and precision, and I directed the Department of Defense to take every precaution possible to minimize civilian casualties. Knowing that this terrorist had chosen to surround himself with families, including children.
Let's bring in White House correspondent Mary Alice Parks and State Department official, former State Department official, Colonel Steve Ganyard, ABC News contributor, for more on this. Steve, we heard President Biden go over many of the atrocities that this leader was responsible for. How significant is his removal?
Yeah, Diane, you know, ISIS has sort of been, hasn't been in the headlines lately, and al-Qaeda certainly has been out of sight for quite a while. We still don't know where Zawahiri is, but if you listen to the Pentagon briefings in the past couple months, they've been very clear that ISIS remains a very potent threat and that they are reorganizing and trying to rejuvenate the organization. And so to take out the leader is a big blow to that organization. Oftentimes, it'll just be the next person up. But as the Israelis say with terrorists, it's sort of like mowing the lawn. You need to take out who you can, when you can, but you have to be prepared that the organization will eventually rejuvenate itself, and there'll be somebody to pick up the mantle.
Mary Alice, what can you tell us about how this raid was planned and ultimately executed? It sounded like the president wanted to make very clear today that they did try to limit civilian casualties, despite the fact that it sounds like some were killed.
Diane, that's right. And that was exactly the message from senior administration officials that briefed reporters this morning. They said that they started planning this operation back in December, but that the president gave the green light on Tuesday in a conversation in the Oval Office, and then overnight was being briefed and getting real-time updates, following along with his vice president and members of his national security team in the Situation Room. One bit of color, they said that when the operation was finally done, the president said, "God bless our troops," before going upstairs, and then received continued updates throughout the night from his national security advisor, Jake Sullivan. And you're right, this morning the senior administration officials said exactly the same, that they took extreme measures to try to limit any civilian casualties. That's first reflected just in the fact that this was sort of a manned mission, that we put U.S. troops there in harm's way on the ground instead of carrying out a drone strike. But more than that, there was a conversation about how they worked to get civilians out of the first floor of this residential building. They knew the target was on the third floor, and they worked to clear those lower floors to try to get civilians civilians out of the way. This is, again, according to the government officials, that they made loud, audible announcements in the area to try to get people to leave. That's pretty normal with a mission like this, but to, again, try to tell people what's going on who might, to make sure that people are inadvertently sort of mixed up in this. And then they did a lot this morning to point the finger back at the target, to say that the civilian casualties that were caused there on the ground were the result of his actions, that he detonated an explosive, killing, they actually used the word murdering, his own family and other residents in the building, because the U.S. forces, according, again, to administration officials, were doing everything they could to limit civilian casualties.
And Steve, President Biden said that, quote, this operation is a testament to America's reach and capability to take out terrorist threats no matter where they try to hide anywhere in the world. Do you think we can expect to see more operations like this one in the future?
Yeah, I think, Diane, if you think about it, this is very much like some of the other high-value targets that the Special Operations Command has taken out. Go back to the bin Laden raid. Remember that the bin Laden family was living in a multi-story building that looked very much like this one. Then remember Baghdadi, who was head of ISIS, was also caught in a building like this, and he too ended up blowing up innocent people. So maybe there was a realization that bin Laden got taken alive, or at least they entered the house in a way that Baghdadi and Qureshi didn't want to happen. But you know, these kinds of raids, as Mary Alice alluded to, these kinds of raids take months to plan, because the U.S., frankly, I mean, the U.S. gets a lot of heat for civilian casualties. But I can assure you that at the military level, every effort is made to minimize civilian casualties. And so in this case, I would imagine that they would have wanted to get al-Qureshi alive just for the intelligence value. The fact that he blew himself up along with his family took out a treasure trove of intelligence that they could have gotten from him or from some of the computers that might have been around him. So it's these kinds of things are very, very tough. They take a long time. The intelligence takes a long time to develop. The U.S. Special Operations Command wants to be absolutely sure of the target being there and to minimize civilian casualties. But I think going forward, eventually, that unfortunately, that ISIS will rejuvenate in some capacity, and these kinds of raids will continue.
All right, Mary Alice Parks and Steve Ganyard, thank you both. We appreciate it. And a winter storm is expected to bring ice and snow to many parts of the country, including St. Louis, which is expecting about ½ a foot of snow. Ginger Z is there with the latest, and the wind chill there close to 0. Hi, Ginger.
Diane, you know we've had thousands of flights canceled. St. Louis has had them, back to Dallas, but across this nation, you're going to see impact even if you are not feeling the storm. But there are a lot of people feeling it. Let's go ahead and look behind me, because you can just barely make out that Gateway Arch. The visibility down a little, but down here is where the story is here in St. Louis. There's this layer of a couple of inches of ice we've had yet this morning with the second round, and under it is this kind of crushed ice under the snow. So you got snow, some crushed ice from the sleet and freezing rain we had yesterday, and that's the problem, is so many places are going to have many types of precipitation all across the nation. So let's get right into the maps. If you were to drive from the Rio Grande up to the Canadian border, more than 2,100 miles of this nation is in a winter storm warning. That's significant. So yes, through Indiana and Illinois, Iowa, Ohio, or not Iowa, Ohio over into Pennsylvania. But you see this region on western Kentucky, including Lexington, Evansville, Paducah, Bowling Green, Memphis, down to Greenville, Mississippi. That's where we're concerned about accumulating or accreting ice. When you get a ½ inch ice or more, you can take down power lines easily. We know that at least 50,000 customers in Texas this morning have already seen impacts from that. Now, about the timing. Today's the ice, right? That's in the Mid-South there. Then that ice, and Texas and northern Louisiana and Arkansas, but then that ice starts to slide up. Cincinnati will see some of it. The freezing rain even makes it into the Hudson Valley, western Massachusetts, and Connecticut by tomorrow morning. In New York City, you'll start the day at heavy rain. You'll even hear some thunder potentially overnight. But then it will make its transition through that icy mix, and eventually the cold settles in. So this is the temperature tomorrow morning with the wind chill, 19, the feels like in Houston. Look how deep that cold goes. 8, the feels like in Midland. St. Louis will feel like 1 below. And New York, even though at 8 a.m. it's 33, it'll keep falling through the day as that front passes. Diane?
Oh, man, we were enjoying some kind of warm weather for a little while. Ginger Z, thank you for that. And officials in Beijing are working overtime to keep athletes from around the world safe and free from COVID as they come together for the Winter Games. Maggie Rulli's there in Beijing with all of the last-minute preparations inside the Olympic bubble before tomorrow's opening ceremony.
As Olympic competitions begin ahead of Friday's opening ceremony, painstaking efforts are underway to keep Olympians inside the Beijing bubble healthy and COVID-free. Inside the guarded fortress, daily morning temperature checks and COVID tests administered by workers dressed in full-body PPE is the new norm.
You cannot leave this bubble until your plane flies you back out of the country after the games. It's that severe.
Currently, out of the 441 Olympic delegates in China, 8 are in isolation. Team USA bobsledder Alana Myers is one of them. She tested positive on day 2, along with her husband and son, who are traveling with her, all asymptomatic. What did you think when you got the news?
I was pretty shocked. Did everything we could to try and avoid it, and it still caught up to us anyways.
The new mom is now isolated from her son Nico, born in 2020 with Down syndrome.
We FaceTime as much as we can and trying to do everything we can to stay connected.
And she's also training in isolation.
Here's my cribs tour.
Her bike shoved into the corner. USA bobsled dropping off everything she needs to care for her nursing son. The threat of testing positive hangs over the athletes at these games. In an Instagram post, Belgian skeleton racer Kim Mellemans, who tested positive, is on the verge of tears after being held at a clinic even though she was released from isolation.
We are not even sure I will ever be allowed to return to the village because I'm not sure I can handle 14 more days and the Olympic competition.
She was finally brought back to the Olympic Village. For Elena, the 3-time Olympian's hoping she'll be back in time to race.
Competing at the Olympics is just like the dream of dreams. Being in the back of the sled, it feels like you're flying.
And Diane, we have gotten some good news. We've heard from Alana. She's already gotten 1 negative COVID test, and now she just needs 1 more in a 24-hour period to get back out there in the ice. And there's a good chance she could make it out there before her event. It's the Monobob on February 13th. Diane?
All right, Maggie Rulli in Beijing. Thank you, Maggie. Coming up, the owner of the Dolphins is responding after former NFL coach Brian Flores filed a racial discrimination lawsuit. The latest on the fallout after a quick break. Welcome back. The NFL is reacting to a lawsuit by former NFL coach Brian Flores alleging racial discrimination in hiring across the league. Flores also alleges he was offered $100,000 to tank games. Victor Oquendo has the latest.
Former Miami Dolphins head coach Brian Flores not backing down after filing that bombshell racial discrimination lawsuit. The NFL calling the claims without merit. Flores arguing that 70% of the players in the league are black, but of the 32 NFL teams, only 1 currently has a black head coach. Flores alleges his former boss, New England Patriots head coach Bill Belichick, told him that the New York Giants had decided to hire Brian Daboll as their new head coach days before Flores was scheduled to interview for the job.
There's a humiliation that came over me, and then there was a little bit of your anger. You know, why wouldn't I afford the opportunity to truly interview and show what I can do?
Marvin Lewis, who became head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals the year the Rooney Rule was enacted, which required teams to interview a minority candidate for top positions, says the policy should have been a catalyst for change.
We had opportunity and we felt like we were making strides as minority coaches. And then obviously over the last 3 to 4 hiring cycles, we've gone back the other way. And this one is going in the same direction or worse.
In his suit, Flores also takes aim at the Miami Dolphins, which fired him after leading the team to back-to-back winning seasons. Flores says during his first season, he was allegedly offered $100,000 to tank games by owner Stephen Ross, an offer Flores says he declined. The NFL vowing to investigate, but Ross calling the allegations false, malicious, and defamatory, adding, "I welcome that investigation, and I am eager to defend my personal integrity and the integrity and values of the entire Miami Dolphins organization." Despite the lawsuit, Flores says he hopes to one day coach again in the NFL, but he knows there's a chance his career is over.
If my career's torpedoed and there's change, it'll be worth it.
After the lawsuit came out, the NFL said that the allegations were
without merit. But now ESPN is reporting that that was in direct response to the claims of racial discrimination in their hiring practices. And now the league will investigate the claims that Stephen Ross offered Brian Flores money to lose games. Diane?
All right, Victor Kendo, thank you. And Halle Berry became the first woman of color to win the Academy Award for Best Actress in 2002. But 20 years later, she remains the only black woman with that title. Now Berry and more of the world's best-known actresses are opening up about what it means to be black women in Hollywood. It's part of a new special edition of Soul of a Nation called Screen Queens Rising. TJ Holmes has a preview.
That word, beautiful, has been a hard word to get around for me. I love when someone says, you're a great mother, you are a talented actor, but the physical part has become a bit, okay, what else is out there for me?
Oh, we think we know Halle Berry. After all, she's been on movie screens and in our living rooms for 30 years. But it was her transformation into Letitia Musgrove in Monsters Ball that was her true breakthrough. It won her an Oscar for Best Actress, making her the first and still the only black woman to ever do so. Now Halle is hoping for another breakthrough, this time in front of as well as behind the camera. She produced, starred in, and directed Bruised.
So that's your motivation to get over here.
Stripping herself down to play Jackie Justice, a disgraced MMA fighter and mother.
The story was so clear in my mind because I had to reimagine it for someone like me. It wasn't written for a black woman. What I was finding out about why women fight, the world became very clear to me in my mind. And it was a story that was burning inside me to tell.
I see tears in your eyes now. It's not just a labor of love. You went through it, Halle.
I did. I did. I did. But the good thing is I'm a fighter.
Actress Tessa Thompson has crafted a wide-ranging body of work from memorable performances as superhero Valkyrie in Thor Ragnarok to civil rights legend Diane Nash in Selma.
It's Nash.
Mr. Bevel?
My colleague Deborah Roberts sat down with Tessa Thompson to hear about her experiences in Hollywood.
Is there a different journey for women depending on the tone of your skin, would you say, in Hollywood?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's undeniable if you just look at Hollywood iconography by and large. You can see it. It's clear as day.
Thompson is now working to do things her way with her own production company called Viva Maud. Her goal is to create roles for a variety of women.
And I think one thing is just to be able, in whatever way I can, to foster projects that actually allow for a wealth of black women to be on screen that are all shades, that are all colors.
TJ Holmes, thank you. Soul of a Nation presents Screen Queens Rising tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern on ABC. Coming up, a 500-acre redwood forest is being returned to tribes whose ancestors were forced to leave generations ago. What it means for the growing land back movement after this. Welcome back. A 500-acre section of an ancient redwood forest in Northern California is being returned to the native tribes whose ancestors protected it generations ago before they were forced to leave. The land, known as the Fish Run Place, was purchased by the conservation group Save the Redwoods League and will now be placed in the care of the Intertribal Sinkyone Wilderness Council. Sam Hodder, president of Save the Redwoods League, joins me now for more on this. Sam, thanks for being here. Can you give us an idea of just how significant this forest is to the indigenous tribes of the area?
Absolutely. And Diane, thank you so much for having me. And this property actually was closer to $3 million. It was a critical property in the heart of the indigenous territories of the Sinkyone people. So it's also a critical piece of a expanded area of conservation land that is known as the Lost Coast. And this is right in the heart of California's redwood forest, which, as you know, extends from Big Sur up to the Oregon border. What many people know about the redwood forest is how extraordinary it is, how these are the tallest trees in the world and how they can grow to be over 2,000 years old. But what many people don't know is that California's redwood forest is a critical ingredient in the fight against climate change because a mature coast redwood forest can sequester more carbon than any other forest in the world. So to collaborate with and join with the indigenous people that are the original stewards of these lands as part of the healing of the forest and the healing of the culture and community that links us to land, it really is an extraordinary conservation opportunity.
So what went into this decision to transfer ownership back to the tribes?
Well, the Sinkyone Intertribal Wilderness Council was established as a consortium of federally recognized tribes from this region to do exactly this, to protect and restore nature and to heal the cultural connections between indigenous communities, and this landscape. So we had a shared vision in helping nature to heal in this redwood landscape. So the opportunity to convey this property back to indigenous stewardship and to accomplish together through a collaborative approach to the stewardship of the redwood forest here was a way to achieve our organizational mission to protect and restore the redwood forest and to connect people to their peace and beauty.
So how will this deal affect who can visit the forest and who can use its resources?
Well, this property is very remote. It's in a section of the California coast that's called the Lost Coast for good reason. It's really hard to get there. There are very few roads. It's very wild. It's very rugged. It's very beautiful. But the objective of this conservation project was not so much recreation or public access. It really is about healing the ecosystem, including the communities of that ecosystem, so that this forest land could heal and be protected.
All right, Sam Hodder, we appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Diane.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.